Greetings! My name is Dwayne, and I want to show you how I make my top hats. And I've come up with a couple different sizes here that I do for my top hats now, because for years I did the same top hat. No matter what I was doing, no matter what type of material I was making, I had the same top hat, the same size, and basically the same pattern no matter what, just going into making my different gnomes there. So they came out looking pretty much the same, just a little bit different material. And basically they were designed to fit my basic patterns. Well, over the years I've changed a little bit and done more now with cones, and I've talked with people who are doing more things with other materials besides the pool noodles, different ways of socks, making them and everything. So I thought it best that I change a little bit and make a couple different sizes. And the nice thing is these are a little bit smaller. This is a mini one because, as I said, I'm doing more with cones now, and I like to have something that I can use with the cone there for a smaller one, or with a smaller cone, or with a bigger one. And the inside I've made a little bit tighter inside here too, so it fits at different things, where the other one was a wider to fit on a wider body. So come up with a couple different top hats. I want to quickly show you how I put them together. I not only do them with the felt, working with the wool, working with different materials on that too. Fleece I find is a little bit too soft to work with, but the wools, some different harder fabrics, the felts work well. So what I'm doing is showing with the felt. We'll start out with that, and using the 9x12 piece of felt, and folding it over. And what I'm doing is my pattern is actually 4 inches in length. So I'm just folding it over and then drawing out my pattern. And it's going to be just simple 3 pieces. This is going to be the brim of my hat. This is going to be the basic hat itself, and this will be the top of the hat. So I just have 2 cutouts that I'm using, but cutting out for my 3 pieces there. So I've drawn out my pattern, and then I cut out the pieces. So it's on the fold there, so when I unfold it, it gives me my 3 basic pieces here. Now this can be done either sewing or, again, with a hot glue gun. I prefer to do it with the sewing, and I've shown in the past how to do it with the glue gun, just running glue down the side here and gluing it together, opening it up, and then gluing in there. If you've seen any of my other videos, of course, you know I use the blanket stitch. I hand stitch, so I'm going to grab some thread here. Again, this can be done sewing machine too. If you do that, it's just sewing up about 1/8 of an inch there. One of the reasons I do a lot of my hand sewing and I use the blanket stitch is because I like the blanket stitch as an accent on the outside of a lot of my gnomes too. On the hats, if you've seen some of them, like Unnie's hat, it's got the blanket stitch on the outside, and this just helps sort of practice by doing it along here. So I'm just going to sew up the side here, and it's just taking it over the top and through. Now I am using the darker felt here. Normally when I'm doing examples, I try to use the lighter felt. I'm using it because when I'm doing a top hat, I'm usually doing a darker top hat. And so I'm trying to keep with that in mind, that, okay, I'm going to use this to put onto a gnome eventually. Whereas I use the darker thread too, where normally I like to demonstrate so you can see it a bit better. But we're going to go ahead and just do it with the dark here, since most of the top hats are darker colors. So I'm going to pull it through here. We're going to take a few moments here. And I found, as I said, that this will fit other types of gnomes. This will fit, you know, the different types of bodies that people are making, just giving more variety, going into doing different things with the gnomes, coming up with different ideas and sizes. Just better than having just one top hat. Now I do still have the main top hat as my basic top hat, but this gives me a couple different ones too that I can play with. And I've just started at the very bottom there, and I'm going up, and this is of course just bringing it together. When I get to the top here, I'm going to open it up, and we're going to sew the top on here. If I just keep going, lots of times I used to stop and get a different piece of thread. Here I found I can just, I've already got my needle and thread out, take my circle for the top, and I'm going to put it right where I put that seam there. And again, do my blanket stitch and run it through. And as I said, any of my projects, I try to make it so they can be either hot glued or sewed. So at this point too, if you wanted to glue it on, you would just be lining up your seams and running hot glue in there. I prefer to sew on this project just because I'm going to be turning it inside out, and for me it's just a little easier. I find, especially doing like the mini one, the smaller hat there, sewing just to make it easier to turn inside out. So we're going to take this, and again, we're going all the way around. I'm just lining up the top of my hat and bringing that and sewing it all the way around there. So we're going to switch off here for a moment. So I've come all the way around to the side there, come back to here, and just tied it off by sewing it through on there. And now I'm just going to turn it inside out. So this is going to give me the top of my hat. And then we're going to attach the brim to it. But before I attach the brim to it, I was playing around. I was looking at some of the other gnomes online and everything, and seeing how some people were doing some real neat, again, older women looking like type gnomes and everything. And I found when I was flipping it in inside out, I'm coming up with more of a lady's hat for that. Again, just an idea. I'm going to play with it a little bit more, see what I can come up with, maybe put a little fur yarn around there. But I thought too, that would be cute just as a hat like that. I'm always trying to come up with different ideas using the same patterns and everything. And a lot of times what I do is I like to show the basics and then go from there. So sometimes people will ask me when I'm doing a gnome, or they see it in one of my gnomes, how I did something, and they're surprised when they go back to learn that it's just from the basics and modifying it a little bit, adding a little something to it, just changing it, folding it differently, and just playing with it. So once you learn the basics, have fun with it, play with it, you know, do different things besides just the accessories. Now I have my brim. The brim's going to be a little bit too big by the time I sew it on there. So what I do is I actually cut my brim open, and you'll see what I mean when I get around to the side there. So I've turned it inside out. I'm going to lay that brim on there, and again, line up my edges. This is where I've shown in the past where you can hot glue. You can just run hot glue along here and glue that down, or do the blanket stitch and just start stitching around there. Probably gonna have to grab another piece of, grab some thread here real quickly to show you. Make sure you knot the end. And I'm going to start where the seam is. And then once again poking through and doing the blanket stitch around. And again, just going to go all the way around the rim here, lining it up. When I get to the end, show you here real quick here. When I get to the end down here, you're going to see that here I have about an inch overlap. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to cut that right off. I want to have a little bit of overlap so I can glue that together. And I've had where it's been only like 3/4 of an inch, and it's fine to just glue the whole thing on. You could do that too. Again, I'm just going for a little bit of detail there, a little bit of cleaning it up, taking that off. I've sewed around to my side there, so gonna have a little bit of overlap. And here's where I just hot glue that down together. And that's going to get me my hat. Now, I like to, because I've done the inside there, as I said, it gets a little bit closer on the inside on there when I put together. When I'm putting it on my gnome, I will add some polyfill to the top there as needed, so I can have something just more of a tight hat there, or if I'm doing more of a floppy hat, that's fine, leave it loose and not put as much polyfill in there. But I also like to put a ribbon around there, some type of ribbon. And I tell you, this morning I was going to start doing this video earlier, and I found my wife's secret stash, one of her secret stashes, she's got many, of ribbons. And reason I mention that is because her secret stash is less than 2 feet away from me, and I've never known it. For all these years, she's able to stash stuff so well. And I got into her ribbons, and I spent 20 minutes to a half hour just looking at ribbons, looking at different colors and sizes and everything, and just got so distracted and never realized that she had a stash of these beautiful ribbons less than 2 feet away from my work table. And I give her credit for that. And I love having a wife that is craftier than I am. So what I'm going to do then is just glue this onto there. Gives me a nice little top hat there. And just wanted to show you quickly how I do things, how I make patterns, how I make my hats. And I've come up with a couple here, as I said, to make as far as different sizes. So it's not just one size fits all anymore. So this I'm going to decorate. I'm going to get out some little holly berries and put a couple different little leaves in here too. But I want to give you guys just the basics, because I know from the basics you guys can grow it, and you guys do beautiful work. And I love to see the gnomes on the different gnome boards, and I love to see what you're doing. So I appreciate that, and I'd love to see and hear back from what you're doing. Thank you.